In this video, I'm going to show you how to take a Toyota Tacoma with the factory screen like this and make it look like this. This is a 2021 Toyota Tacoma. It had the factory 7-inch screen, but the non-JBL. Now JBL and non-JBL, you can do what I'm going to show you on both. They just require different harnesses. So what's going in this vehicle is this, the Pioneer DMH-WT76NEX. I've never seen one before. I've never touched one. This is the first time I ever took one out of the box. Got it out, realized instantly, this is the factory radio. When I took that screen out, I realized it matches that opening perfectly. So obviously when I got it in here and I saw that, there's no possible way I was gonna make this screen float out of the dash. Once I knew it was the same size, there was no way it wasn't gonna get it flushed or damn near close to being perfectly flushed in this dash, so it looks like it's a factory radio as opposed to sticking out. So dash kit wise, I went with the Metra 99-8251B. And you're not going to use anything out of this except the side bracket. The TR1 from PAC, so you can do the video in motion bypass, but there are a couple tricks you have to know when you're using this radio. So we have the Sirius satellite tuner and the steering wheel control interface. But to make this work, so it sits in the dash like it's factory, this is the Pioneer unit. If I flip this on its side, you'll see the modifications that need to be done. Here are your mounting points. So the easiest way for me to show you how this is I have the screen at the uppermost mounting point on the brackets for the Pioneer. I have this factory, the way it came. I don't have the front extended or anything. The bracket is just mounted, and then you slide the screen down, put in the screws. So it is just 100% nothing exciting, just the uppermost position. Then you're gonna take the kit, and if you notice, these are where the front bezel would mount on the kit if you were to use it. It should touch the back of this screen. Now down here, you'll notice there's a little divot right there. See that little outcropping? That won't let it set flat, so you have to take a knife and cut this section of the kit. Put a little notch there so that doesn't affect it, because you want that to be sitting right up against it. Once you have that sitting up against it, you know that you're in the right position to where this is going to set depth-wise, and this is going to literally sit in the dash with about that much of the chrome sticking out. You can go flush, but I'll tell you why you don't want to do that. But you can if you're not going to do like what I do. But it's damn near flush and it looks awesome. Here are your mounting points. You're going to have to oblong this opening so that this screw, because you need the kit to slide forward more, because at the furthest back point of this, the kit doesn't go all the way up and touch the screen. So you drill that out and slide it forward, and then this mounting point right here, you're gonna drill out. There's no opening here normally. This is just solid plastic. So you just kind of have to figure out where that opening is. You mark it and then you drill it, make it oblong so you have some kind of adjustments if you need to, and you tighten it down. Same thing on the other side. I was getting a little crazy. I didn't know which way to go, so obviously that was my first one I did, but it's still fine, everything's holding. By modifying the brackets that way, when I put this in the dash, put in the 4 10mm bolts to hold the kit sides in, when I snap the bezel of the dash back over top, it is almost flush. It sticks out a little bit, but just the chrome. As far as in the opening, it's completely filled. I kind of prefer this because if I go completely flush, that radius difference in the corners becomes very obvious. I also am not going totally flush because Pioneer did a horrible job designing this radio. Now the reason why I say they did a horrible job designing this radio is 2 reasons. The first is the way the screen mounts in the front. The metal bracketing, the cable coming here, this is all so overly engineered, it's ridiculous. Now a perfect example of a properly done front screen mounting is by a company I would never normally expect, but because of the pandemic, this company has kind of stepped up. Boss Elite. So the Boss Elite line came out like a year or 2 ago, and it's where you get, you know, a 3-year warranty if you get the Elite, blah, blah, blah. but it's the ACPs. So any of the model numbers that end in ACP, which they have 4, they have a 7-inch mechless, a 7-inch CD DVD, a 9-inch, and a 10-inch floating screen. I have put in all of them, but the one thing that sticks out is the way they did their floating screen. It is a masterpiece. The floating screen plugs into the front of the chassis like it's a giant plug that recesses in. You don't have to tighten any bolts. You don't have to set up any brackets. You don't have to do anything. You slide it in, it locks in place, and you can adjust the screen up and down, turn it, tilt it, anything you want to do, and it's not loose. It's firm. They anchored it just enough to where it doesn't wobble. It's perfect. So crazy, but that Boss floating screen, hands down, the best floating screen attachment I've ever seen. Unlike this, which looks like an Richter set that you got to figure out and get all your angles, and then you got to get in there in the sides with a screwdriver and tighten your screws and stuff. It's just stupid and over-engineered, so it doesn't need to be there. This seems like it was probably a board that was already manufactured by somebody, and Pioneer just, you know, bought it, or they're using it for this unit. I don't think it was engineered specifically for the Pioneer radio, and I say this because of that. That's your USB port, Type C. And that. I didn't even know this thing had HDMI input. Come on, it won't even focus, it's so small. But yeah, that's an HDMI input. It's called a micro HDMI. So the Type C connector on the back, okay, so that means you have to go to Type C to standard. This is what they provide. Now let me show you why this is just not gonna work. So here we are at the back of the radio. Here is the Type C adapter they gave us. And there we go. How much depth did we just add to that? And on top of that, there is no way on this green earth installers are not going to snap those right off. People are going to try to shove this deep radio into a dash with all the wires. They're going to push hard and they're going to snap that right off, and that's going to be a problem. So this is, there's no, it's a piece of junk. I don't even know why they did that. They did provide this cable. So if you want, you can take this cable and you plug it in here. Granted, a little bit better, but still wobbles. But now we are hardlined with this cable. That is Type C on the other end. So now with this cable plugged in, here we are. And then you got that on the other end. Okay, so here's the problem with this. A, I don't need another 3-foot cable back there because almost 99% of my installs, I'm gonna use a USB adapter port. I'm gonna mount a port on your dashboard, and then it's gonna have, the other end is gonna be a male USB. And now I have this too. So now I have, instead of a 1-foot run, I end up with a 4-foot run with 3 connection points. Here's where the people will post in comments that I'm an idiot. This thing has wireless Android Auto and wireless Apple CarPlay. You don't need the USB port. Well then, I guess we don't need to hook those up. Wrong. If you've ever used wireless Android or wireless Apple CarPlay, you know it doesn't work all the time. You know that sometimes it just sucks, especially after you get an update. So you get an update on your Apple phone, CarPlay quits working, your update screwed it up. 3 weeks later, Apple may roll out something to fix it, but for 3 weeks, you would not have Apple CarPlay unless this USB port is available to you. Make sense? So you want to have this available just in case you need to plug it in. You don't want to rely on wireless. Wireless is not something that's going to be bulletproof and work all the time. Now, I know I'm harping on this thing and acting like it's a piece of shit. I'm not saying it's a piece of shit. I just really don't ever see people pointing out the issues that you're going to run into as an install. You know, if you ever watch a video on like this radio, it's going to be all about that. And you know, functionality and usability. Well, that's cool. But then there's people like me that have to put this in. And these are all things that I wish I would have known before I quoted this job, because there were parts I needed. You would have to get something like this, and then you can, you know, bend it and rotate it, or buy a 90-degree off Amazon or something. But that's not something that I have available to me to do the job right now. I do have this, but I would have preferred something a little tighter rather than this. The micro HDMI, I have a micro HDMI cable because I'm an electronics hoarder and I happen to have one at the house. So I brought it over. I'm gonna do the same thing. It'll plug in here. I'm gonna loop it around, put an eyelet on that screw to hold it in place. And I'm actually running it into the glove box. Now the reason I'm running the HDMI into the glove box, again, I wish I would have known what this radio had as far as features, because I would have ordered a couple more items that would have made this install a little bit nicer. Personally, I wish I had a HDMI USB port, a plate, because that's what I would like to put in his glove box. The USB port I would like to wire up to his 12-volt accessory so that it can power, and then the HDMI port would be coming from this radio. Why? Because it's the same thing I have in my show car, and that's where my Roku goes. I plug the Roku in the glove box, I plug the USB to power it, and I can watch Netflix and Hulu and anything I want on my radio. So bypassing a radio is not something you're supposed to do, and I do not condone it, and I'm not saying that I'm doing it and that you should do it. Bypassing is so you can use this while you're driving. Anybody that has Android Auto, Apple CarPlay in their factory stereo system in a new car knows how much it sucks. Now you don't know it sucks when you first get your car. You're like, oh man, my new car has Android Auto, Apple CarPlay. Case in point, my wife just got a brand new 2022 Hyundai Tucson hybrid. She's got Android Auto, Apple CarPlay. She's all stoked, right? It's awesome because her last car was a Prius, didn't have it. And we went somewhere, and as we're driving, I went to set the GPS, and you can't. It will say, please put vehicle in park. You can't search Spotify for more than like 2 pages. It will tell you to put your eyes back on the road. You can't do anything. So you can listen to music and answer your damn phone. They lock you out. So it makes the experience, I'm sorry, it just makes it lame. Older radios, back in the day when they first came out with screens, they put what's called the parking brake wire in there. The parking brake wire was supposed to be wired up to the negative side of the parking brake. So basically when you pulled your parking brake up, it would show ground and it would think that you're, parked and you could watch videos. So obviously we all grounded the parking brake wire. You just tied it in with your ground and that bypassed every radio. Then they started changing it up. They started doing double pulse and triple pulse. They wanted to see 2 pulses of ground. So hooking up to the ground didn't work because it wanted to see ground, off, ground, good to go. So then people started doing toggle switches so you could flip the switch. So you up, down, up, and then you'd have bypass. Then Pioneer always did this weird thing, like on their AVH models, I think it was, where you'd go into some screen, I can't remember what it is, you turn the screen off, and you'd hold like down in this lower corner, and it would pop up, and that's how you would get into like diag mode, like if you were working at Pioneer and you needed to work on the radio, that's how they would be able to bypass everything. Pioneer always had this double pulse crap. So to do that, you have to wire in a bypass trigger. Now, if you go on eBay, you'll see all kinds of, Pioneer bypass and blah, 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 and it's a little black thing with 3 wires coming off of it. Please don't buy those for $30, $40. You're getting robbed. It's not worth $30, $40, okay? All you need is this. It is called the PAC TR1, all right? Pretty simple. PAC TR1, it's a trigger interface. Has 3 wires, well actually 4 wires coming off of it because it's actually set up for Alpine too. You have to hook it up to the remote turn on of the radio, ground, and the parking brake. Pioneer, in their infinite wisdom, years back, realized that everybody was just gonna bypass their safety feature. What they started doing was all the units that had GPS is they tied in the safety feature into the GPS antenna. If the GPS antenna is showing movement or that the vehicle is in motion, it will not allow you to do anything, even if you have the TR1 bypass. So on this unit, if you want to do video in motion bypass, from what I understand, you have to use a TR1, like I said, so that's wired into the harness, but you cannot hook up the GPS antenna, and you do not hook up the VSS wire in the harness. The VSS is the vehicle speed sense wire. What's gonna happen is when you start your car, you'll get probably 1 time, every time you drive your car, it'll pop up and tell you that your GPS antenna is not hooked up. And you just, okay, ignore it. You're never gonna be able to get rid of that. That's gonna happen. By unhooking the GPS does not mean you won't have GPS. Android Auto and Apple CarPlay use your phone's GPS. So there it is, just mounted There's 4 10mm that go in each corner, but there's no reason to put those in right now. We can just take this and show you how it would look. So check this out. This is what I'm talking about. Get that lined up. Make sure your screen is in the opening. Click it in. Boom. So that's it. That's my first video on YouTube, and it's about as unprofessional as possible. I guess I'm supposed to ask you to subscribe. I'm supposed to tell you to comment, hit some bell. I don't know anything about this, man. I'm old. I gotta get to work. Take it easy.